just like to state for the record that the absolute worst way to spend your time is moving. There's not time to do anything but move, and it is a process. I had not done it in a while. And I moved states, which made it even more complicated. And there was more than one person in my household to move. My God, today. I'm not doing this again. Nope. I am planting roots here and just never leaving. Ever. But thank you all for your patience as I moved. I have missed doing readings and talking about stuff and whatnot. But what is cool is where I have moved to, and I can't wait to listen back to the audio because this room's a little echoey. But I do have my fancy mic, so we'll see if it helps. But where I've moved to, I've got a new office, obviously. There's nothing on the walls. Hurts me. But all my action figures and everything are ready to go. So I am going to be doing some nerding up of my new office space. And I'll take y'all along on that journey with me because I'm going to do something kind of fun that I saw another creator do. And I was like, ooh, that's a fun way to cover the walls. So I'm going to try that, see if it works or if it makes me mad. We'll see. But for today, I just want to get back into the thing. Y'all don't care about my woes and troubles. I know why you're here. Let's read some Warhammer. Welcome back. So let's just get right back into Legion. I'm going to jump forward a little bit because there's a lot of, this is a very politicking book more than like action, shoot. But it's good politics. And remember, our central character is John Grammaticus, who is by far one of my favorite characters in the Warhammer universe, right up there with the Eisenhorn, honestly. He shows up in a lot of the novels, and he's almost like a linchpin character. He has been operating on behalf of Xenos, the Cabal, for a minimum of like 1,000 years, I think, helping them maneuver humanity in a way that keeps the universe from being destroyed by the humans. Because if you know how us humans are, wherever we show up, we're going to do a thing. And it's probably not going to be a thing that benefits the majority, just ourselves. I mean, human's going to human. But for John, for so many years, because he understands the ultimate goal of the Cabal and he has seen the visions, he understands what humans might do to the universe if left unchecked, he gets it. And ultimately, the Cabal are not out to destroy humanity. They actually have like a little moment of like heart and are like, you know what, can we guide them to the right direction? Then along comes the Emperor with his mighty plan to conquer the known universe in the name of mankind. And they're like, maybe these past like billion years while they were developing, we should have stomped them out when they were small, because we didn't know they were going to produce this behemoth of narcissism who thinks the universe only belongs to one race. That's what the Emperor represents. He represents manifest destiny, that because I have decided I am the greatest, and to be fair, the Emperor is the greatest among mortal men. One being that he's immortal and a perpetual. He has been very long-lived. He has seen the most, done the most, psychic powers, the whole nine. Yeah, he probably is the most powerful amongst the humans, but he's not the most powerful in the universe. There are other forces at play, other kingdoms that exist, but the Emperor has lived long enough to see humanity scattered across the galaxy on many worlds, and he wants to reunite humanity. But here's the problem, and I think this is a problem that happens in our society as a whole. So I'm gonna get just a little real worldy for a second. So if you don't want that, just skip ahead a couple of minutes, okay? So I'm black, Black American, obviously. My ancestors hail from the continent of Africa, most likely. I say most likely because if you come from the America, the Canada, to some extent the Australia, I mean, we live in countries that are made up of other nations showing up and not having had a crucible of, I guess you would call it, genetic leveling. There's a reason that everyone in China looks the same. Not the same, has identical features. That was the wrong verbiage. There's a reason that everyone in Africa has dark skin. There's a reason that everyone in South America has a bit of homogeny. It's because of genetic isolation. They were not places where people tended to, well, have a ton of diversity when it came to physical features. Everybody had dark hair because for 1,000 years, everybody had dark hair. Everybody got fair skin because for thousands of years, everybody had fair skin. But then the touring, conquering, whatever you want to call it, of the world started happening. And because of that, there was an introduction of genetic material into places where it hadn't been. So when you look at the Americas, Canada, Australia, because we're made up of many nations and not one nation, there is a variety of tones in the people. And there's a variety of tone in our cultures as well, because my culture can't be strictly African because I wasn't raised there. And, if I'm being real, even though it might be a place I want to visit one day, my family's been removed from Africa for a minimum of 300 to 400 years. Regardless of how it happened, I'm not here to talk about that today, but I'm not African. I'm a Black American. That's why we're called Black. Anyway, but I don't connect with that culture. I love learning about it. I find it interesting as any cultures. There's a lot of countries in Africa. I have no idea which one of them I come from. None. I can guess based on features. I would imagine that wherever the people of Haiti came from, that's probably where my family came from, because every time I see pictures of Haitians, I'm like, I look like them. I think that's it. But because I don't have that connection, I could never identify as African. And I'm pretty sure the nations of Africa would appreciate that, because I'm far genetically removed from. I have some inherited traits, obviously. Got the hair. This is my actual hair here. So, love it. This is me. I don't wear makeup very often, so this is like, this is what I look like. Got the lips, other things. That's how, genetics works. There are dominant genes, and more than likely throughout my genetic history, people with, dominant genes that produce these traits, they were the ones to make babies. That's how I got here. But I'm American. I was born here. This is where I was educated. This is where I learned language. This is where I socialize. So my identity is as an American woman. It would never be as an African woman. And if there was a call for all of the dark-skinned peoples of the world to return to Africa and, repopulate and let's all be one happy nation, I don't think I'd be down. And this is all hyperbole. But it's not my continent, not my culture. I like the culture I'm in because it's the culture I was raised in. That's how we are. We like the culture we were raised in. And I say all that to bring us to this. That's the emperor's mistake. The emperor, being as presumptuous as he is, assumes that everyone who has a trait of human in them somewhere must want to unite with Terra, with Earth, in this great brotherhood and bonding we call humanity. And that's simply not the case. There are pockets of humanity on planets that haven't seen humans other than the ones on their own planet for millennia. They have no affinity towards Terra, and some of these nations, some of these planets have forgotten that Earth even exists. It's so far removed in their history. And there's an extent to which some of them, you could argue, aren't even human anymore because they've either evolved based on the planet they're on, or they have intermingled with some Xenos and produced a whole new species. They don't have a connection to Terra. And where the Emperor really screws up is there's a reason it's called Warhammer. In the future, there's only war. If a planet, a group of people who are human enough will not bow the knee to the throne of Terra, they don't ask them if they want to join the Imperium of Mankind. You either join or there's a campaign of war waged against you. there are planets that willingly join the Imperium of Mankind. And they're like, yay, we're all humans, woo. And there are others who are like, no, we've got our own thing going here. Thanks for stopping by. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. And then bombs fall from the sky to destroy everything they've built. I mean, this is the mistake of humans just on our one little planet, which is why we should never, ever attempt to go into the known galaxy, because we will do out there what we do here. But, I mean, even on our own planet, people see a thing, want a thing, decide whether or not the people there are people enough, and if they decide they're not, they wage war against them. Rinse, ring out, repeat. That's how things work amongst humans. Should it be that way? I can't decide that. I'm not smart enough. But it is that way. And the Cabal have seen how humans have evolved. That the Emperor is an all or nothing being. There is no room in his mind for anything that is not completely for him. And the throne of Terra, well, then it must be against him, and it must be destroyed. So coming back around to John Grammaticus, he knows and sees all of this. He has seen what the Cabal has let him see, and he has chosen to be on the side of the Cabal, which ultimately is still on the side of humanity. Humans just don't know it. And one of the bigger tasks the Cabal give John Grammaticus is to get them in touch with the Alpha Legion. And we talked in depth about the Alpha Legion, the only Legion with a twin Primarch, Alpharius Omegon, the twin Primarch. They are basically interchangeable. The Primarch is Alpharius, but there's two of them. It's weird because it's not twins in the terms we think of twins. Like, they might as well be one being. And the way that they've created and indoctrinated their legion is they're all basic carbon copies of each other for the sake of subterfuge. Every legion has its way of conducting campaigns. There are some legions that just automatically rain bombs from the sky. There are some legions who are great builders and craftsmen who use that to ingratiate themselves. There are legions who are big on the worship and, they set about a conversion campaign on a planet. They're all different. You got those that don't care if they want to join or not. They'll just, throw their drop pods down and start shooting. That's what they do. Omegon, Alpharius, Omegon, Hydra Dominatus. They choose to replicate themselves in their legion and operate in subterfuge. It is supposed that their network of knowing things, their whole table they got going on, if you know, you know. But everyone who works under their table and feeds them information, it is so large that they might rival collectively in knowledge to the Emperor, and maybe have more knowledge, because it's unknown at this time if the Emperor knows of the Cabal. And the Alpha Legion doesn't know of the Cabal until Grammaticus brings them together. The reason they choose Grammaticus to bring the Alpha Legion to them is because the Alpha Legion knows so much and has seen so much. They are more than likely the only Legion who might be persuaded to act on behalf of the Cabal if the ultimate goal is saving humanity. I mean, let's be real. You can't just show up and tell people, your race is going to destroy the known universe if you don't settle down. No one believes that. These have been campaigns of indoctrination from Terra. Grammaticus is able to believe something different because he's a perpetual. He's been out there in the space seeing all the things for 1,000 years. He gets it. Most humans aren't going to live that long. Space Marines live that long because they've been genetically altered. Primarchs live long because, again, genetically altered. But regular humans, they're not going to live long enough to believe something other than what's taught to them in their limited lifetime, be it 50 years or a couple of hundred years, because humans are very long-lived in this universe, but they still eventually die. They don't live long enough to see their minds changed organically about something. That literally takes, thousands of years of separation for that to happen. So Legion is all about John Grammaticus bringing the Alpha Legion to the Cabal, so the Cabal can have a conversation with the Primarch, Alpharius Omegon, That's not even a conversation, it's a versation. To talk to them about the amazing role they could play in the destiny of humanity. Because Alpha Legion knows so much. They're the only Legion that could possibly be convinced. So let's jump to the end of the book and see if they are convinced. Hydra Dominatus. Reading from Legion by Dan Abnett. Secrets and Lies. Chapter 11. Hydra. They came back out into luminous halls that would never seem so bright again. The future came with them like a shroud. Alfarius and Omegon were silent and expressionless. Ashen, broken. Sonica carried Shear's corpse in his arms. The Astartes were waiting for them, their bolters still covering the furtive, whispering members of the Cabal. My lord, Peck began. What did... Alfarius raised a hand for silence. He looked at his twin, and they stared into each other's eyes for a long time. Sonica set Shear's body down on the deck. Roxana came over to him. Beto, your face, she whispered. What was it? What did you see? Sonica shook his head. He couldn't speak. She put her arms around him. He saw the acuity. John Grammaticus was standing behind them. It's a terrible thing, isn't it, Beto? Quite terrible. And quite wonderful, too. Wonderful! Sonica burst out, pulling away from Roxana. How can you call it that? Because in all the horror, it offers a chance, said John Grammaticus. One pure, simple chance to save, to spare, and to protect. Sonica stared at him. I don't think much of the chance, John, he replied. Slough Daw stepped forward to face Alfarius. The Astartes followed him with their weapons, but he ignored the threat. Well, he asked in a halting, thickly accented low Gothic. What is your response, mon qui? Do you have the strength to make this choice? Or are you just as weak and self-serving as the rest of your vermin species? Alfarius gazed at the autarch levelly. I stand for the Emperor, he replied. In all things, I am loyal to him, and I cannot break that bond. He has many great ambitions, and the noblest of intentions. But I know that above all else, he is determined to stand firm against the rise of chaos. He has always known the truth of it. The overthrow of the primordial annihilator is his greatest wish. So what I do, old talk, from this moment on, I will do for the Emperor. Slaudar nodded and walked away. Lord Namajuma continues to plague us with demands, said Herzog. He is becoming quite agitated. He insists that you report to him immediately and make full disclosure. Does he indeed? Alfarius replied. Herzog nodded. He is beginning to make veiled threats to my lord, accusations of treason or worse. I believe we must make some kind of response before he loses all patience and embarks upon a regrettable course of action. We will make a response, said Omegon. Alfarius glanced at his twin. If we are to prevail in the task ahead of us, said Omegon, we must be secure and committed. We cannot let our hand be seen too early or have our undertaking betrayed. Secrecy, as always, is our most potent weapon. Agreed, said Alfarius. He bowed his head and was silent and pensive for a moment. So, asked Omegon. Alfarius looked up at him. Do it, he said.
Still no response from the Primarch or any of his officers, my lord,
announced the master of the Vox.
His barge also refuses to acknowledge our repeated hails.
Namajuma nodded. The bridge of the Blemires had grown increasingly quiet. The tension was palpable. Repeat the message, Namajuma ordered.
Yes, my lord,
said the master of the Vox. The Lord Commander turned to Van Unger. I'm going to withdraw to my chambers, he said, and compose a statement of censure regarding the Astartes Alpha Legion. If we have not received a satisfactory reply by the time I am done, you will send the statement directly to Terra. Yes, my lord, said Van Unger. At that time, I will issue one final notice of intent, and if it is not answered, we will begin total bombardment of the surface zone. Sir, Van Unger protested. Shut up and listen, Van Unger, Namajuma growled. Total bombardment of the surface zone. Furthermore, you will position appropriate heavy cruisers to challenge and cripple the battle barge. Van Unger shook his head in dismay. They are Astartes, my lord. What you're proposing amounts to war against our own. The Lord Commander does not believe they are our own anymore, Fleet Master, said Dinas Cheyenne. Namajuma turned to leave the bridge, but a call from the tracking officer stopped him.
Sir, the Astartes battle barge has just slipped high anchor.
What? Van Unger said, startled, hurrying to the station. Show me.
It's coming about, sir, the tracking officer gabbled. It's turning in towards the fleet formation.
Those duplicitous bastards, murmured Namajuma. That's an attack vector, Van Unger cried. Full shields, battle stations. The barge has opened fire, sir, a deck officer shouted. The Cantium has taken direct hits. The solar wind, too. It's open to the void. Return fire, Van Unger ordered. All vessels with viable target solutions on the barge Beta fire at will.
The carrier Lauren has gone, sir. The Tancredi and the Loudon both report damage.
It's just one ship, barked Namajuma. It's an Astartes battle barge, you cretin, Van Unger spat at him. It's plowing through the center of the fleet like a hot knife. The deck shook as the Blamiras began to fire its primary batteries.
8 direct hits recorded on the target vessel,
the master of ordnance sang out. Yes, crowed Namajuma, clenching a fist.
The Beta is not slowed down, said the tracking officer. Function does not seem to have been impaired.
A shrill siren began to sound, slicing through the battle klaxons. Teleport signature, a bridge officer howled. Full spread of teleport flares throughout the misdirection. We're being boarded. Internal hatches blew open in a welter of flame and flying metal. Bolter rounds ripped out the smoke, choking the hallway, and cut down crew personnel as they tried to flee. The Astartes appeared, striding relentlessly out of the fire, their purple armor reflecting the rippling flames. Their bolters roared as they switched left and right methodically, covering every side tunnel and passageway. Repulse! Repulse! Shouted Major General Dev, sword in hand, trying to rally the platoons of Hort infantry. Open fire! The troopers began to blaze shots down the length of the hallway. Dev thought he glimpsed a purple figure staggering back, but bolt rounds seared out of the swirling smoke and destroyed 2 of the troopers beside him. Covering in their blood, Dev tried to pull his moon back to cover. Keep firing, he yelled. He grabbed his Vox. Repulse squad, to the deck 8 and 9. Heavy weapons. We need heavy weapons. They drew back along the hall and into an assembly chamber. Bolt rounds chased them and cut down 3 more men. 40 Ultramen heavies were running forwards through the chamber to support them. Up, 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 Dev yelled. Come on, hold the fucking hatchway. Keep them back. The deck shook with a series of loud blasts from somewhere. Give me the fucking launcher, Dev screamed, throwing his sword down the hatch in the heavy weapon hands of one of the Ultramen. He began to pump rocket grenades through the chamber hatch. Light blinked and flickered in the chamber behind them. Coalescing matter swirled and twisted the eddy smoke. 6 Alpha Legion Astartes materialized, their weapons firing on full auto. The Major General and his men perished in seconds. Something's happening, said Titch urgently. Something bad. Honan Mu gazed up at the sky. The bright flashes and sparks beyond the clouds cover were not lightning. That was orbital fire. The fleet had engaged.
I can't raise the carrier or the flagship,
the Joker's Vox officer reported. Keep trying, she ordered. What is it? Asked Tiffany. What is happening up there? I don't know, replied Mu. Everyone winced suddenly. Sept pain shot through the Uxor and her aides, its iridescent rim turning slowly. The giant copper disc rose up behind the crags of the shivering hills and ascended straight up into the sky. It vanished into the low cloud. Mu sat down on a flat block of stone. It had begun to rain, fierce and cold. She could already smell the minute and the change in the air. Whatever purpose the atmospheric zone had been created for was done with. It was no longer needed, and it was being allowed to dissipate. She had no idea of the process it would take. Days, weeks. But the caustic atmosphere of 42 Hydra Dominatus would flood back and restore climatic equilibrium. Honen Mu perceived that no one would be coming for them. The Jokers and all other ground assault units would still be in zone when the poison storms of 42 Hydra Dominatus reclaimed it. Then, other decomposing remains would be left, drowned and scattered across lonely cubic rocks. Dinas Cheyenne placed a firm hand on Namajuma's arm. "Now, my lord," he insisted. "No, Dinas," Namajuma snapped, pulling away. "The security of the flagship can no longer be guaranteed," said Cheyenne. "The companions must escort you to safety of your sanctuary launch." The bridge was shaking. Every man at every station was shouting above the wail of sirens. There was a distinct smell of smoke. "Target again," bellowed Namajuma. "Again." "We cannot break its shields," Van Arger yelled back.
"We just lost the Barbastion."
"The Loudon is reported on fire and drifting." Namajuma walked up to Van Arger and slapped him hard across the face. "Destroy that barge, you piece of shit." Van Arger recoiled, spitting blood from his lip. He balled his fist to swing back. Cheyenne took him by the throat. Van Arger gagged. "You will not raise your hand to the Lord Commander," said Cheyenne. "Complete your orders." He let Van Arger go, and he fell to the deck, gasping. "All weapons," he coughed. "All weapons. Sustained fire. Everything we've got, damn it, before
"Contact!"
a tracking officer cried.
"A second contact!"
They stared at the jumping graphics on the main display. A vessel was showing tracking towards the rear of the fleet. "Where did it come from?" Van Arger asked.
"It just appeared on the scope, sir. It was concealed behind the planet."
"That's another barge," Van Arger said in a low voice. "That's another fucking battle barge." "The Alpha," whispered Namajuma.
"It has opened fire,"
said the tracking officer. "Now, my lord," said Cheyenne. This time, Namajuma allowed Cheyenne to lead him away. "Noisy out there," Bronte muttered through the blood oozing out of his mouth. "Shut it," ordered the officer of the brig. He exchanged a worried look with his two assistants in their blood-spattered aprons. The thump of explosions and the crackle of gunfire was impossible to ignore. Bronze began to laugh, but it turned into a wet, ragged cough. "They're coming. They're coming for me, you see. I knew they would." "Shut up," snarled one of the officers, viciously tightened one of the cage screws. Bronze screamed. He coughed more blood. My name is Hurtado Bronze." "Oh," he wheezed. That's all you're getting." The cell door slammed open. Two figures in black body gloves burst in. Beto Sonica shot the officer of the brig twice through the heart with a last pistol, and then pumped several more rounds into his twitching corpse. Thanner decapitated one of the assistants with an expert slice of his falx, and then drove the long blade into the other's belly. He tugged the weapon out. The man collapsed. "Get him out of the restraint," said Sonica. Thanner started to undo the heavy clasp bolts.
Beto, hang on, you're hurt, you're a mess. You came for me. A personal favor granted by the Primarch, Sonica said. You came for me, Bronzy repeated. We look after our own, said Thanner. They pulled him out of the cage. He couldn't stand, so they carried him between them, his meaty arms blood-soaked around their shoulders. Hurry, said Thanner. Signal the teleport, said Sonica. Thanner nodded. We're going to get you out, hurt, said Sonica. We'll get you in this barge and patch you up. Just hang on. It's good to see you, Beto, Bronzy murmured. And you hurt. If it's so good to see me, why do you look so fucking grim? Later, said Beto Sonica. I'll tell you later. One end of the flagship's vast carrier deck was ablaze. Shane and a squad of 6 Lucifer Blacks ran Namajuma through the smoke and across the wide deck space towards the armored sanctuary launch. Prepare for immediate departure, Shane cried into his Vox. The Lord Commander will be aboard in 20 seconds. I don't believe he will, said Alfarius. The Primarch had emerged from the dense smoke pouring down the carrier space. He stood, gladius drawn between the companions and the launch. The Lucifer Blacks were armed with lap pistols and sabers. Without hesitation, they rushed him, firing as they came. Last rounds pinged and flashed off Alfarius' armor. Some left scorched and dented holes. He drove into the meat change. One swing of his sword broke the back of the first Lucifer. Alfarius wheeled and crushed another skull with his left fist. Blades sawed at him from all sides. He blocked with his sword and gauntlet and left his hand. A saber shattered. The gladius stabbed clean through the chest of a companion and ripped free. Blood spattered out in a wide arc across the deck. Blocking another sword stroke with his gladius, Alfarius delivered a crushing punch with his left hand and sent one of the remaining Lucifers flying backwards. He grabbed another and broke his neck with one twist of his armored fingers. Shane swung his saber, and it was barely blocked by the Primarch's sword. He altered his attack dynamic. Alfarius had to take a step backwards to defend against Shane's extraordinary swordsmanship. The Primarch parried and thrust, but Shane dodged the strike and ran his saber into Alfarius' side. The tempered blade, as strong and sharp as any metal known to man, punched under the side of the power armor, through the segmented layering, and deep into Alfarius' torso. Alfarius looked down at the wedged blade. A tiny amount of blood oozed out. He murmured. He stared at Shane, who knew he could not pull the sword out. That's all you get, said Alfarius, and split him in half. Alfarius sheathed his gladius and dragged the saber out of his torso. He tossed it away and walked through the litter of bodies where Namajuma was kneeling on the deck. Please, my Lord Primarch, please, I beg you. Namajuma pleaded, his hands making a desperate namaste. Alfarius drew his bolt gun. Why? Shrieked Namajuma. Why are you doing this? For the Emperor, said Alfarius, and pulled the trigger. Epilogue. Cabal. The copper dish spun through the darkest part of the void. John Grammaticus walked its silent halls for the last time. Where are you going? Asked Slough Da. Away. It's over. I'm done. There will be other tasks. Not for me, said John Grammaticus. The Cabal is grateful for your efforts, said Slough Da. I bet that was hard for you to say, Grammaticus replied scornfully. He walked away from the autarch. You were successful, Monkey, said the Eldar Lord. Why do you not seem satisfied? Because of the measure of my success, said Grammaticus. I successfully signed the death notice of the human race. John, Salda called out, you're heading in the direction of the external hatches. John! John Grammaticus ignored him and kept walking. He felt he deserved it. It wouldn't be his first death, but he hoped it would be his last. If you get bored in the middle of a Warhammer book, just wait for the end. Everything pops off. So Alpha Legion, Hydra Dominatus, has been convinced to act against the Emperor on behalf of the Emperor. And there has been a campaign they were a part of with Lord Namajuma's Terran forces and the Lucifer Blacks. And in preparation for what they must do, or what they've been told they must do, they turn against their own. And all of the characters of the books sit hopeless if they've been working towards the cause of saving humanity to see a Primarch Legion turn its guns on humans. John Grammaticus feels he's been tricked by the Cabal because he watches as Alpha Legion tears through an Imperial fleet. He didn't think that's what was going to happen. He thought he was an agent saving humanity, and he just watched the greatest protectors of humanity actively seek to destroy it. What would you think? Was he right? Was he wrong? Well, you have to keep reading the series to find out. I actually have a little bit of a book haul I'm going to do. In my moving, we actually stopped at in one of the states we were in, stopped at a local nerdery. It was a Warhammer tabletop place, and they sold, of course, the figures and the books. And I picked up a few. I picked up Fabius Bile, the omnibus, and I also picked up the first omnibus of the Siege of Terra. Y'all, I never thought they were going to get to Terra. Y'all know how old the Horus Heresy series is? I never thought they were going to get to Terra. I was like, they're just going to keep pumping out books. And they are. But the first omnibus is like 6 books. And there's 3 of them that are going to happen. So they dragging this thing out. You know what? Get your coins, Black Library. You got my coins. There will be plenty more for us to read. But welcome back. I am glad to be back and doing something I thoroughly enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, and let's get back to the business of enjoying all things nerd. I am the Ebony Otaku, the well-rounded nerd. It's been a pleasure.